Well, good morning. We finally got a bye, and usually during the bye situations, what I've always liked to do is take a time to reflect and kind of just talk about the team and where we are. But I can't stress to you all enough that we got a lot of football left. We have 6 games to be played here in the 2018 season. I think it's important for this organization to focus on those 6 games. We have to continually to win. The coaches have to continually teach. The players have to continually to develop. And let's finish strong as this season unfolds here in 18. Now, regarding the last 2 weeks, I think Gregg Williams has done a really nice job. And he's had the guys take this team and keep them focused on the task at hand. It's all about winning, you guys. And I think Freddie Kitchens has done a really nice job of putting the game plan together and then on game day actually executing that game plan. And I think it's kind of reflects in the numbers. And then, I'd be amiss if I didn't recognize Blake Williams. The interim head coach has cast, extra duties for him to do, and I think Blake has done a really nice job with regards to that. Now, I know all of y'all want to talk about the coaching search, and just let me say this. I'm not going to really go into detail much about it, but I will say this: senior management and I have kind of gotten together the last 10 days, and we've kind of begun to walk through the processes. We still have 6 weeks left with regards to putting our plan together. And at the end of this process, we'll be able to interview head coaches, and we'll be planned, we'll be prepared, and we're going to get the best coach possible for this organization moving forward. But I can't stress enough to you all, the game of football is about winning. We have 6 games left, and let's end the season on a strong note. And with that, I'll take your questions.
John, as you begin the early processes of the coaching search, can you give us a little insight as to where you're at with that right now? Are you compiling a list? Are you compiling characteristics you're looking for in a coach? What exactly?
I think it's a combination of things. I think it's organizational tenets with regards to this person. I think it's football philosophy. And then I think it's, what are the characteristics of that man? I know me personally, I would like to see a man of character. I would like to see a man who can lead young men. I'd like to see a man who's got high football acumen. I mean, those are the 3 basic things there I'd look for.
I'm sure you probably had somebody in mind when you got here to be that coach. Is that person still at the top of your list?
Anybody who sits in my position will have a list of anywhere from a head coach to a quality control, and I have multiple lists. But what I want to do is make sure that we as a group, whenever you make a tough decision like this from an overarching organizational decision, you want to get as much information as you possibly can. You want to do it in a collaborative manner and make sure you're very prudent as you go through the process. But rest assured, at the end of the day, this guy will be the best candidate for the Cleveland Browns moving forward.
Do you have an outside firm? Are you going to use an outside firm like this, Jed Hughes, or do you believe that with all your experience that you don't need that?
We don't need that.
How would you characterize Gregg Williams and Freddie Kitchens' possibility of remaining with the organization?
You know what? That is a hypothetical. I think both of them have done a heck of a job. They really have in their respective roles. And, I'll just get this out of the way right now. Gregg will get interviewed for the head coaching position. I think he deserves that. And I think Freddie's done a heck of a job. And let's see what happens, as we continue to play 6 more games of football with regards to, with Freddie. But I think Freddie's done a heck of a job.
Do you have a preference whether or not the guy is NFL versus college coach? Does the guy have to have NFL experience for you to consider him for the job?
I think, again, what we're doing in the process right now is we're taking as much information as we possibly can, regardless if it's, in professional football, if it's in college football. We're going to gather as much information as we possibly can and make the best decision for this franchise moving forward.
Could you give several examples of what you expect from the remainder of this season?
Well, again, I think emphasize the winning, continue to coach your respective players, have players, begin to develop and end the season strong. I think that's important. Now, let's be competitive in each and every game the next, next 7 weeks.
Can you address what involvement, like Jimmy and Dee Haslam will have in this process, and just sort of outline for us how you are leading this search and how this is all you're going to arrive at a decision?
Well, Jimmy and Dee and Jimmy, they own the team. So I think with ownership, what you have to do is sometimes, not sometimes, but you sit down and communicate. Any good organization will communicate as these hard decisions are being made. And then we as a senior management team will say, here's who we think is best for this organization moving forward.
Well, who is this senior management team? Who are you including in that?
Members of the Cleveland Brown organization.
I just assumed you meant
say. I'm not going to say.
ownership.
I'm not going to say. I'm just going to, let me put it this way. We had the first pick in the draft last year. I didn't say very much. I'm not going to say very much because the importance of this, selection of who that person will be. So I'm not going to say much, y'all.
Mike Holmgren sat in the big seat here and had to decide whether to keep Eric Mangini. Of course, he did. And I think most people would agree that it became a wasted year, and then the successor didn't have success. But what about keeping you as long as the organization did and the way this season? How, in what ways might this not be a wasted year?
If we continue to win and build and finish strong, that's all you can ask for. That's what I ask for, is play every game tough, and let's see if we can put some back-to-back wins here. Let's see if we continue to, see if we can get a positive outcome at the end of the season here.
Besides the obvious of, like you said, being wanting competitive and get some wins together, what else did you, like when Gregg took over, what else did you want from him in terms of handling the team and so on?
Well, I've always been a believer of you play the game like you practice, and I think these practices have been very competitive. They've been very structured. They've been very disciplined, and guys have had some energy, and that's the difference I see. There's been a focus on the little things, which I think is important.
What are you most pleased with since you took over, the biggest area of improvement that you've seen in the Browns?
Well, I think in that regard, I think the culture within the locker room, the players that were here before, they've got another additional year. They're a very young team last year. They've had an additional year to understand what experience means. Then you bring in some veterans who have some experience. And what I've admired most is you have very selfless individuals in that locker room. They're very competitive, and they truly like their teammates, which is a good thing because now they set the bars, they set the goals, they set the objectives. And, there are a lot of good guys in that locker room, and I think they've come together as one, and they understand the task at hand.
As you go through the process of finding the coach, how important will it be to find the right fit for Baker Mayfield, to find a guy who will be able to ensure that everything he does well is maximized?
Well, he's developing as a quarterback. He's still a rookie quarterback. He's demonstrated certain things during the course of a game that get you excited. But I think if you would ask him as a person, he still has a lot more football to master the position he plays. And I think he will continue to do that. Now, with regard, again, the traits that you look for in that coach, men of character, are they leaders, high football acumen? And then you'll get that in the interview process of, how deep of a football knowledge do these respective people have. That's natural when you go through the interview process.
Do you have to consider that fit your quarterback?
I think what you do is you consider everything, but you consider at the end of the day what's the greater good for the Cleveland Browns and this franchise moving forward.
Considering, it seems like every week you guys have a rookie of the week. Obviously, you like these guys that took them, but have they exceeded your expectations to some extent this year?
Well, they've played good, but I think every draft is measured. To me, I've always said, give yourself 3 years, and let's measure the draft then. That's how I've always looked at it. I think, again, if you ask each one of those recipients of the Rookie of the Week award, as you say, they'll ask you, you know what? They have a lot more football to be developed and learned, and they can be that much better. They're rookies still.
Just on that, it has been a very productive draft, but could you, Austin Corbett, what does he have to do to get on the field?
Well, I think with regards to Austin, he's got 3 very talented players in front of him at the respective left guard, center, right guard positions. And eventually, you know, his strength is now he'll be able to play everything. But I think when his time comes to get into that lineup, or whenever it is, then he's got to grasp it and take it. And knowing his person, he'll grasp it and he'll take it.
You know, when Jimmy was up here talking about the changes, he talked about internal discord, you know, being an issue. A couple weeks later, where are you with all that stuff?
Well, the last 2 weeks, I think Gregg has done a really nice job in terms of having this team focused on the task at hand, which is winning. I think, you know, he's put some discipline in there. He's reduced the numbers of penalties, which I think is good. And then, you know, I think he's done a really nice job.
Find a guy, you know, the internal discord thing has basically been a theme here in Berea since 2012. So how do you find the right guy that will not only fit and meet all your criteria of what you want in a head coach, but someone that you know is going to be able to basically play well with others and get along and keep the eye on what's important, and that's winning?
No, that's a good question. You know, what it is, it's got to be the interview process. Do they align within the organizational tenets, too, of what you're looking for? But I think as you go through the interview process, you will be able to see what really is in his soul and his fiber. How deep of a knowledge does he have? What type of people will he surround himself with? You know, I've been in the league, you know, a lot of years, and I know the majority of coaches, not only in the college ranks, but in the professional ranks, both as head coaches. I mean, I'll know most of who he's talking about, and then you'll see how it all unfolds.
Excuse me, John.
No, go ahead.
Oh, and
Can I ask? But the one thing is, this job is very attractive. I'm going to tell you what. I really think that this job is very attractive. It's kind of like, you know, for the same reasons when I joined here in 2017, it's very attractive. And any future head coach candidate, who it may be, you know, he understands the fan base here, which is unbelievable. There's a lot of young talents on this team, and they will continue to get talent. There's assets in place. I mean, the cap position we're in right now is great. The draft picks, we have 11 draft picks for the 19 season. And the support staff, I've been around some franchises, and I will say this is the best support staff there is in the National Football League that I've been around. And then you have ownership. I mean, my God, these guys right here are so passionate, but they're willing to invest. I mean, there's not been a thing I've asked Dee and Jimmy, you know, maybe if we do this, and they said, sure, let's do this. So those are exciting things for this organization moving forward. And anybody, once they understand that, you'll see that, you know what, Cleveland is a good place to be.
during the 0-4 stretch, particularly looking at the lopsided games against the better teams, Kansas City and Pittsburgh, what were some of the problems that you need to solve that kind of became underscored while you were going through that rough patch?
I don't know if there was a problems that had to be solved, but you know, in the direction it was headed, it wasn't headed in the right direction. But now that's something you learn from the past, and I'm trying to concentrate on living in the present and where we've been the last 2 weeks and what we have in front of us here the next 6 weeks. So that kind of gets me going here a little bit. And right now, I've liked what I've seen in the last 2 weeks, and you know, I'm excited for the final 6 games to finish this thing out strong.
How much of it is Mayfield, the uptick against Atlanta? How much of that is the whole Mayfield experience and what a quarterback needs to be?
Well, I think the offensive coordinator put the quarterback in a position of things that he does best in terms of getting rid of the ball quickly, taking the stress off the offensive lineman, and getting into rhythm passing. I think that's. You know, that just showed itself in that particular game in the development that Freddie's beginning to have with regards to Baker.
John, what do you think this week? A year ago this week, you watched Baker.
Excuse me. Go ahead, Terry. You're up. Go ahead. No.
Oh, me?
Yeah, you're, come on.
What do you think about Hugh Jackson going to the Bengals? And did you have any clause in there, consider any clause of no compete?
No, I wish him, you know what, I wish him the best. You know, it's, it was hard a couple weeks ago, and, Hughes to the bank, I wish him the best, and wish him the best.
When you're talking about leadership, is there a charisma factor in that? I just wondered if there's, like someone who commands a room and just what he can do to a team that on the rise.
In the interview process, I mean, again, you'll see like guys who can lead men, guys that have character, guys that have high football acumen. You'll feel this guy. I mean, it's like anything what you do in terms of interviewing people. You'll get a feel for that person, but you're asked certain questions, you begin to gather the information that you want. But at the end of the day, I think it'll be, I know it'll be the best for this organization moving forward.
Some college coaches have done
Wait a minute. I skipped his question. Go ahead.
A year ago this week, you watched Baker at Kansas. At that time, did you have any inkling that this would all come together?
It's interesting where fate puts you at certain times in certain places, in the present and past and the future. You know what? He's here, and I'm here. It's kind of neat.
I was going to ask you,
Thank you.
there have been a lot of great college coaches, and for whatever reason, they fail in the NFL, like Spurrier, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not asking about him, but why do you think that happens, that some great college coaches just can't make that step to the NFL?
I can't answer that. Pete Carroll, he did it. He made the transition pretty easy. There's certain guys that can do it. That's a case-by-case basis.
You talk about faith. Go ahead, Drew.
You invested a lot of time and resources this offseason to really remake and flip over this roster. I'm curious how much, I'm guessing you did that to bring in players that fit the existing coaching staff. I'm curious with the new staff, how much what you've already done and how it would fit with the new coach will play into this process.
Well, it'll be part of the process. It'll be part of, again, the interview processes, that whoever that prospective head coach will be, he will have understood by the time he comes, or whatever the interview process, he'll know this team inside and out and how they fit into the system. And I think it's a situation you don't address until once the head coach is in position.
You kept Patrick's next. Go ahead, Pat.
Yes, sir. Patrick?
I'm sorry. You talk about fate putting you in certain positions. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you've directed a coaching search like this, headed one before like this.
No, I've never headed one. I've been a part of one in Green Bay.
Does the magnitude and the importance of this hire, does that strike you? This could determine the direction of the team for 10 years.
I understand that. And the one thing I've always thought about is one of the most important decisions, I know this, I think about this driving home all the time, is the hiring of the right head coach for this organization moving forward. I think that is tantamount. And I think about that every day driving home and just make sure you don't mess it up. That's why I keep telling myself, just don't mess this thing up.
I'll ask you this because he put his name out there and he's not working anywhere. Bruce Arians, you could interview him right now. Would he be on your list?
I have a lot of respect for Coach Arians. Right now, we're in the process of beginning to finalize our plan, and when it comes the appropriate time, if he happens to be one of the people, you'll find out.
Couple more here.
In terms of your because you kept it so close to the vest with the #1 overall pick, will you keep your senior management team, super small, just to a couple of guys? And then also, will it be important for the coach to report to you? And have you been granted that opportunity yet to have the coach report to you?
We'll keep it tight. we won't say very much. I've always said the most important thing, and I've been around organization where the head coach reported to the GM. I've been in an organization where the head coach and the GM reported to ownership. But the most important thing that I've always seen and observed is that inner daily working relationship between the head coach and the general manager, and they're all on the same page getting this thing moving in the proper direction. And I think that's the most important thing.
But not Bruce specifically, but anybody in that age group who is closer to the end than the beginning. Is there a strong appetite to get somebody who can be here and would want to be here and would have the youthful enthusiasm to be here for a long time if he succeeds in the early going and you want to keep him?
I just want the best possible head coach to move this thing forward regardless of age. I mean, it could be a woman too. I mean, don't look at me like, I'm serious. Who knows? We're going to look at everything is what I'm trying to tell you all.
Todd Haley told a friend of his that he came to work that day thinking he would be the interim head coach of the Browns. So what happened? It's never been explained why Haley was let go after Hugh was let go.
It's one man, I mean, that's one man's opinion with regards to that question.
Tell us what happened, why he didn't retain his job.
Well, I think right now what I'm trying to focus in on is moving forward as an organization. We have 6 games left in this season, and I think that's where the focus should be. And then we'll move on to the next project as that season begins to conclude. But it's important to end on a strong note here.
Do you have any idea what kind of offensive coordinator Kitchens could be? I'm just thinking, given they hadn't done it before.
Well, you've heard bits and pieces of how good he was. I think it was on display in the 4th preseason game with the Detroit Lions. You talk to various coaches around the league, and you get a sense of what he's played the position, he sees it, he understands from a quarterback's lens exactly what needs to be orchestrated, and he's learned from some pretty good guys too.
How much has he changed? I'm sorry. How many things has he changed, would you say, in a couple of weeks?
Well, I think what he's done is he's kind of, okay, what are the strengths of this? What any good coordinator does is, okay, where are my playmakers? Where are my strengths on this team? And then begins to distribute the ball into their hands. And then all of a sudden, from the quarterback position, what does he do good? And then he puts him in a position to, achieve success.
Nate, last one here. How do you assess the receiving core and offensive tackles? 2 positions, obviously, you added a lot of new guys too. And do you think you need help in those areas? How do you look at it?
Well, you can't have enough good football players. I think that from the receiving core standpoint, there is a lot of young, talented players on this roster who are evolving and developing week in and week out. I think what we do, and then with the offensive tackles, I think you thrust Desmond Harrison into a very hard position. A college free agent from West Georgia who's been asked to block the blind side of the quarterback, and he's done a pretty good job. And that's a hard position to play. And Doug, I tell you how hard that position is to play back there. But what we do at the end of the season is we assess every position and see what we can build moving forward.
Obviously, we haven't spoken to you about this, so I just wanted to ask you, but because he was such a big part of the receiving core, Josh Gordon, obviously he's been playing well. The hamstring thing came up, and then he went to New England, and he practiced right away with them. Do you second guess at all the way that went down?
No, I'm not. I never second guess, but that's about as far as I'm going to answer the question because, unfortunately, I would address that more. But he, works for the New England Patriots right now, and I'm forbidden to talk about another team's players.
I thought you'd say that, but I'm more asking about the trade that you made than the player himself.
I'm fine with the trade.